Without further ado, I'm welcoming up our first storyteller. Rocco DiSpirito is here to tell us a story about one of his favorite people and a favorite memory. Take it away, Rocco.
Thank you so much, Megan. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Uh, Everything I needed to know about food and family, I learned from my mom. This is first 18 months, maybe 3 years. I learned everything there is to know. My mom was considered a saint. I thought of her as a saint, but she was also a liar. She lied a lot. She lied consistently about three things: her name. If you asked her what her name was, she would tell you Mama, regardless of who you were, where you came from, whether you were a relative, a friend, a stranger. She was Mama to everyone. And that's how she liked it. She wanted to be everyone's Mama. And this is from my earliest memories to her last days. This is how she wanted to be called. And that's what she wanted to be known for. She also lied about her age. Silly, right? She'd always respond to the question, "How old are you?" with, "I'm a 21 a plus." Wink, wink, cute, cute. Right? That's cute and harmless, right? No big deal there. And the biggest lie that she told was about her means. We were not well off. We grew up in a what would be considered a lower middle class neighborhood. You know, lots of cultures clashing on my block and the blocks around us. It was the 70s in New York City, in Jamaica, Queens. Look it up if you have to. The center of many wonderful things, but also the center of the crack epidemic and other things that weren't so wonderful. So challenging place to grow up. My mom seemed oblivious to all of it, though. She just lived her life as if everyone was as good as she was, and she gave everyone the benefit of the doubt. And the way she lied about her means was so infuriating to me and so embarrassing. The way she perpetrated this lie was to hand out food to everyone she met. And I mean, hand out literally from her hands to your hands to their hands. She would open her purse in the subway, on a bus, walking down the street, waiting for a bus, at the library, at the school. She would open her purse and take out a chunk of Parmigiano Reggiano cheese. I swear, this is not made up. She would take out a chunk of cheese, really unusual stuff, right? And she would hand it to people, and she'd make friends for life with just about everybody. I mean, who doesn't want a hunk of Parmigiano Reggiano cheese, right? And this is the time where most people didn't even know what that was. We all know what Parmigiano Reggiano is now, but back in the 70s, we all thought that came in a green can and looked like sawdust. But no, not for her. We always had the real thing, even though we couldn't afford to buy a gallon of milk sometimes. Uh, I wore hand-me-downs. The tuition at school was always late or bartered for. My mom would volunteer at the school and help them with their yard sales and their bingo, and we really scrambled a lot. She really was a hustler. She worked very hard to educate all three of her children and pay all the bills. Uh, but somehow she had enough Parmigiano Reggiano for the world. She made friends with people from all worlds with this hunk of Parmigiano Reggiano. But it really embarrassed me. I remember so well sitting next to her on a bus or subway and thinking to myself, I'm not a fan of this person or that person, or this person makes me feel afraid or a certain way. And there are people that I had interactions with or may not have had interactions with. It's just how my worldview was forming at the time, and it's unfortunate. But she broke through all barriers with her incredible personality, her charm, and her hunk of Parmigiano Reggiano. Now, I at some point forced her to stop doing this, or so I thought. I forced her to stop doing it in front of me, at least. But like I told you, my mom was a liar, and she lied a lot. And this is something she lied about for her whole life. Let me tell you now about my school. I went to school at a Catholic school called Presentation of the Blessed Virgin Mary. I wore a maroon jacket, brown tie, brown pants, a white dress shirt, and I had to walk to school every day from 148th Street, 90th Avenue, down 2 blocks to Kings Park, past the methadone clinic, past Mary Immaculate Hospital, onto Parsons Boulevard, named after the parson of the church to whom my school belonged, past our church and into our schoolyard. Now, I know that sounds like a lot of innocent places, but trust me, there was nothing innocent about those places at that time. Each had its own set of obstacles. I had a strategy for each block, every step along the way to make sure I got to school safely. And I always had escape routes planned. And I was terrorized by this walk to school and this walk home. We did it by ourselves back then. My mom worked. My brother, who was closest in age, was 4 years older than me, so he was already in high school for most of that. And this was a tough slog, getting to school and getting home. At school, we learned the traditional parochial school curriculum. Lots of going to church, lots of saying prayers. I was an altar boy. Uh, if my maroon jacket didn't make me a target, my altar boy outfit certainly did. Um, and I had a bully. I had a bully. I'll leave his name. I'll leave him anonymous for the moment. But I had a bully that followed me and bullied me for 4 years. He transferred from another school in fourth grade, and he remained at my school until eighth grade. And for those 4 years, he terrorized me, frightened me. He was the source of many nightmares. My friends couldn't understand how I could be under the thumb of this bully. I was bigger than him. I weighed more than him. I was much taller than him. Uh, by all measures, I shouldn't have been afraid of him, but he, got under my skin. He scared me early and first, and it stuck for 4 years. And I worked through it all these years, and I managed to do well in school and get into a very competitive high school. And I think all of us started to bother him at the end of the school year in eighth grade when we were all going to leave and go to the next phase of our lives, which for me was high school. Uh, I think he was thinking about joining the military. I'm not sure that he got into the school he wanted to, but anyway, he one day decided to escalate his bullying, and he decided that he was going to follow me home. You know that path I told you about? It's the same path, but just in reverse. So he's going to follow me home down Parsons Boulevard, by Mary Immaculate Hospital, through Kings Park, the big field, the playground, the basketball court, the baseball diamond, out the other set of gates, which was onto 90th Avenue where I lived, past the methadone clinic, all the way to my home. I could see him behind me the whole way home. Needless to say, I was terrified. I knew he meant to do real harm, and there was no one to save me from him. I got all the way to my block, my actual block, the block my house was on. And as I got closer to my home, he got closer to me. And all of a sudden, there was another person with him, as if someone joined him for the feast he was about to have, beating me up for one last time before the end of the school year, before we all moved on to the next part of our lives. And as I got to my steps, I could feel someone touching me. It was him, my bully. He actually touched me, grabbed me, turned me around. I was standing on the steps of my door, the threshold of my house, the little three-step doorway, and he started to engage me like a bully does, and I was as terrified as I've ever been in my life. He was ruthless. He was a bully. I'm sure he had good reasons for it. And we had some vocal exchange, or a verbal exchange for a few minutes. It felt like days, but it was probably not more than 10 or 15 minutes. At one point, a knife appeared. I thought, this is it. I don't know where I go from here. And this went on and on. The neighbors started to watch this scene developing in front of them, underneath their windows and out their doors. It was that kind of neighborhood where they would watch this violence take place but do nothing about it. And it escalated and escalated, and we were shouting and, you know exchanging blows, I guess you would call it. We weren't really fully fighting. There was a lot of back and forth, and all of a sudden, I could see out of the corner of my eye this figure ambling 90th down 90th Avenue, and I knew that back and forth. I knew that rhythm, that it was my mother. And I thought, oh my God, she's going to save the day. But what is she going to do? There's a knife here. She might get hurt. What is my mom going to do? She was in her 60s, close to her 70s. What's she going to do? And as she got closer, I remember thinking, just hold on until she gets here, and she'll diffuse the situation. She'll use her charm. She'll figure out a way to save you, like she has many times before. And then the more doubtful side of me thought, there's nothing she can do. She's an old woman. How can she possibly help? This is a young guy who's, you know, ferocious and ready to fight. And as she got closer and closer, I remember thinking, this is it. She's going to either save me or not. And as she got closer, I lifted my head and looked at her and made eye contact. And she made eye contact with me. We were locked in. She knew something was wrong. And my bully turned his head and also looked at her. And his reaction was very strange. It wasn't the reaction of a typical bully, which would be either indignation or fear. He had the look of shock on his face. And a few seconds went by, and we both said, Mama, is that you? I said it because she was my mama, but he said it also. Imagine that. My bully knew my mom because he was one of the kids she gave out Parmigiano Reggiano to on the subway, buses, and streets. He was one of the kids she charmed with her absurd generosity, with her break through all barriers attitude and personality. He was a person she had turned into a friend. He is a person who could have been an enemy to her, but she turned into an ally. We all felt silly for a second. He looked at me, and everything about him changed. He understood that this woman who had shown him indescribable, senseless kindness for no reason at all in the MTA, on the public transportation that we all relied on every day, where all New Yorkers converged. This woman was the mother of the person he terrorized for 4 years. And naturally, he didn't have any interest in bullying me anymore. And his face softened. And my mother said, "What's going on here, boys?" And I realized that the whole time I thought she had given up on feeding strangers candy, so to speak. She hadn't. She just lied about it and continued to do it. And thankfully, she didn't listen to me and stayed true to herself and turned that bully into a friend who's my friend to this day. Thank you so much for listening.